Hello, everyone. This is Zami Eccles-Erwin from FilmFestivalCircuit.com and the director of the Oregon Screams Horror Film Festival. Right now, we are gearing up for our October 17th event, which is going to be held at the beautiful, historic Clinton Street Theater in Portland, Oregon. It's going to be a day of networking, photos, an awards presentation, and lots of great film screening. And to prepare for that, we have been talking with some of our participating filmmakers. Today, we're talking with Michael Granberry, the creator behind La Bête. Michael, thank you so much for talking with me.
And thank you for having me.
Can you tell me a little bit how this project started?
Oh, sure. Well, normally in stop motion, there's a lot of planning goes into everything. Every little detail is kind of thought out beforehand. But with Libet, it happened because I had over the years accumulated many dozens of stop motion puppets that were built for projects that wound up never being filmed for some reason or never got beyond the testing
Okay.
phase. It just sort of fell apart. So all of these puppets were sort of put into storage and left there, some of them for almost 20 years. And the materials they're made out of, latex and foam rubber and things like that sort of disintegrate over time. And I noticed that they were really starting to fall apart. So the time was right to either do something with them or throw them away because they were rapidly turning into garbage. So I decided to just put them all in a movie together and see what would happen. And I didn't write a script. I didn't make any storyboards for it. I literally just put the puppets out on the table and said, "Tell me what you want me to do, and I will do it." And little by little, relationships and power structures sort of started to gel in my imagination from these disparate characters. And one of the things, another happy discovery was I put them in front of a camera and the color palette was just all over the place because they weren't designed, cohesively to be in the
Right.
same thing. So it was kind of nauseating to look at from a color perspective. So I put the pictures into Final Cut and I just extracted the color and I turned it into black and white. And it immediately reminded me of like an old Ladislav Starovich
Okay,
animation. He
totally.
was one of the great grandfathers of stop motion animation. And he was just one of my huge inspirations. And I thought, well, maybe this could be sort of like a tribute film to his work. And I can try to do everything in sort of a 1930s vintage style and learn some things about how they used to film stop motion animation before they had the software and all the wonderful tools that we had today. And it just kind of sprung from there, but it was pretty much improvised from start to finish. And I did not know from one day to the next where it was going to go. I just literally let the puppets kind of tell me what to do. And it was a great way to work, not
Wow.
the most efficient way to work,
Right.
but it was very unique.
That's incredible. Well, let me just say, it's every fabricator's dream to see their puppets and get their final moment on the screen before they deteriorate. So, big shout out to that. But that's incredible. So you have this landscape, you have your characters, and you say, I can just jump in and I'm going to freeform this. I'm going to improvise.
Hmm.
Completely different than when you work on stop motion films. This is your own project. You don't have to. I mean, it's crazy, especially given the density of some of these scenes.
Yeah,
How many characters do you have moving at once in, what's your maximum number? There's a
I
lot.
think the biggest shot there were about 75. But I kind of developed a love early on in my career for like just doing. I like to see the entire screen moving at once for
Okay,
some
yeah.
reason. And I sort of got a reputation for being the person to put on crowd scenes for
Okay.
the different projects I was on. And there's just something about it. I'm also a big fan of like Hieronymus Bosch, the classical painter, whose
Right.
paintings are just, have thousands of characters going on, and everywhere you look, there's a little story happening. And I kind of thought this would be a sort of he was sort of an inspiration for this too. I thought I just want little stories happening everywhere. So no
Totally.
matter what you're looking at, you're sort of looking at the main thing that I want you to see. But if you go back and you rewatch it, you'll see there's all these little things sort of, happening in the corners. And I I love stop motion, and one of the things about stop motion animators is that we like to look through stop motion one frame at a time just to sort of see how it was done. And
Right.
so I was also thinking about all of my friends that are going to be going through this one frame at a time. So it's
Frame
like
by
putting in
frame.
little Easter eggs for people to find if they want to rewatch it.
I love that. I mean, yeah, it's an 11-minute film. It's so jam-packed, you could watch it, I almost feel like I should just play it 5 times over, give 5 different experiences. I mean, this is pretty incredible, and it makes sense that you have a reputation in the industry for something like this because the dense crowds shot, the idea of working with this many puppets, the idea of doing it alone. I assume this was a personal project. That's a horror story for most people in the stop motion world, and for not people who don't even know, laymen like myself, I can't even conceive it. It's crazy to me to jump in and say I'm going to do all the hardest stuff all by myself. At any point, did you have doubts? Did you want to slow down or change the scope?
There, I sort of had some natural breaks because
Okay.
I started this in January of 2020, just thinking it would be my project that I would do in my spare time.
Right.
And then of course in March of 2020 I had all the spare time in the world, as did every one of us,
Right.
because we were forced into our homes by the pandemic. And so I spent about 4 or 5 months just, animating every day. And it was sort of my way to, stay sane, because 2020 was such a nightmarish year, I'm sure, for
Sure.
everyone. And there was definitely a part of, I'm sure, my own anxieties and feelings that I was experiencing at that time that I was sort of, purging through this animation. And then we lockdown ended and we went back to work, and it kind of went away for a while. And then it was when I finished another couple of jobs, I sort of went back to it, with kind of kind of fresh eyes. And I needed it because I was getting sort of burnt out on it. But of course, the ending, it sort of ends in this big, uprising, and a riot and a massacre and a conflagration. And I would say, like, there's a big fire at the end, and the fire really was slow frames, because moving all these little bits of paper that
Oh,
were
yeah.
being used to represent the fire, I was getting about a frame every hour and a half. And
Wow.
at that point I thought I was going to lose my mind, but I knew it was going to end eventually. So I just would take a deep breath and
Just kept
just
going.
keep going. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, yeah, it is cool. I do want to mention that there's a lot of stuff that I think people would tend to shy away from. You have smoke, you have liquid, you have fire. You're not shying away from trying to animate the elements. Was there anything that you decided not to do? Was there anything you backed away from and said, I can't?
I wanted to get for sort of the end scenes, there's a sort of a gentler smoke effect. I did do some practical smoke effects. I love practical effects so much, and
Totally.
that's one reason why I like stop motion. If you can figure out how to do things like liquids and particulates in the air, things like that. It's always fun to try. But towards the end, I kind of wanted it to have a gentler feel. And so I
Mm,
do have a friend who's a wonderful VFX artist that I called
okay.
upon to help with just some drifting smoke effects that would have been way too difficult for my giant fingers to do with cotton or fibers or
Right.
whatever I was using. But there were other smoke effects where I had some black cotton that was on a pane of glass that I put about half an inch from the lens. So it's very,
Okay.
very blurred. So there is practical smoke in there too. So I didn't completely give up, but I decided, I think I want this part to be a little more refined. So
Totally.
I didn't mind at that point.
It makes sense. And I mean, yeah, you have a dedication to practicals all the way through. Just a little bit, a little secret sauce, whatever.
Yeah, sure.
Well, tell me, I mean, this you've worked on a lot of stuff. This seems like a kind of a crazy ambitious project that you just decided to do. I'm sure you do a lot of stop motion related stuff in your day to day, but
Sure.
did you learn anything from this process? Did you take any new insights on the craft?
I did. I really I just trying to figure out, how stop motion was done, how they did certain effects back in the 1930s, and things, because there's no manuals, there's no behind the
Right.
scenes from that era. It's all sort of lost to time. So it was going to be just a very experimental film. I was thinking of it not as a horror film, not as a fantasy film, but just as an experimental film for a long time.
Okay.
A place where I could just go, say, well, it looks like they might have done something like this, and then I would try that thing. And it it made me realize, just again how good storytelling doesn't necessarily require multi-million dollar equipment and tools to get the job done. If you're if you're doing, if you've got an interesting story, people aren't necessarily going to notice, hey, look, there's a little piece of black string holding that flying character over
Right.
there, in the corner. And I decided to leave a lot of the strings and the wires that are supporting, elements on screen, just because I want to remember that experience. So where I was literally with my hand just marionetting a puppet that was flying over a stage instead of having it securely rigged to,
Totally.
to a metal track or something like that, because it was fun. And when I first started with stop motion animation, well, I started when I was a child, but it kind of went away for about 20 years, and I didn't get
Mm,
back into it until my 30s. And when I did so, it never occurred to me, hey, I should learn to become a better animator. I just started making a film. And I just kind of learned as I went. It was many years later, I thought, I should probably try to improve my craft, and did. But this kind of reminded me of that, is that it's important, if you've got a passion for something, to just start with what you have, and in this case, I just had these old disintegrating puppets, and what was lying around my house. Pretty much everything is recycled in the film. All the sets
wow.
were made of recycled materials. Because it was black and white, I had there was a lot of forgiveness in like the color tones. It was more about values than
Right.
colors. So I just wanted to keep going, and I wound up making all of the principal animation for nothing. I didn't spend one penny on
Wow.
shooting this film until it was done. And then I paid my friend who's a composer to compose the music, and my friend
Okay.
who's the VFX artist to do some VFX cleanup for me. And one other friend who I commissioned to make a poster for the film. But yeah, it was kind of exciting. And, none of these, even though these puppets were all made for different projects, the irony is that Libet turned out far more interesting than any of those other ideas would have been if I had seen them through to completion. So
Right.
it's like these puppets were made for this film. I just didn't know that
Interesting.
that's what was happening all those years ago.
Totally.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I love that, and I love the philosophy you have. I think it's actually very inspiring and good to hear that you made something that is great. Anyone would watch this and think they want to do something like that. They want to achieve that level of filmmaking, and you did it for no money. You use things, and you leave in some of the strings and some of the rigging, and you just say, you know what, this is also a gift too. You can make
Yeah.
it. You don't have to clean it up. You don't have to spend tons and tons of money erasing things frame by frame. It
Yeah.
can be this, and it can be great. And I mean, I think it's, very exciting, maybe even more exciting than some of the studio stop motion stuff that's come out in the last
Oh,
decade. I think something like this really, I mean, and like you said, the 1930s Soviet guys. I think the one he was working alone mostly.
sure.
He's. I mean, yeah, I think it's cool to see that there's a lineage there that's alive.
Yeah.
Um, and I want to know, and I really hope you do have something. I want to know if you're working on another project.
It's interesting. I, had not had any, ideas for anything until a long time, until I kind of decided to jump into Libet. But
Okay.
since it's managed to get into some film festivals, I've been trying to get to film festivals, which has been so inspiring just to see other people's work, and so
Mm,
many, great short films, one after the other, just the creative stimulation from there. I kind of came away from one film festival weekend, like a new idea just kind of sort of almost, it felt like it was fairly fully formed,
wow.
in my head. So I've always had a big, passion for, prehistoric, animation, because
Okay. Yeah.
dinosaur animation was pretty
Totally.
big when I was younger. Shows like Land of the Lost and movies like 1 Million Years BC. And I always kind of wanted to get into that world a little more. So I was thinking I
Okay.
might do something and dip a little bit into sort of the primordial realm, but produce it a little more, a little more finely.
Okay.
Using taking advantage of the wonderful friendships I have with people who want to work together and say, hey, yeah, let's make something really cool. So in a few
Excellent.
more years, we might have something to look forward to, but it's sort of in the very beginning stages. So right now, it's just all fun.
Well, that's really exciting. It's a cool project, and it's cool to hear that you have a specific link with. Yeah, I've always
Mhm.
wanted to do the T Rex stomping through in Land of the Lost or something. Uh,
Absolutely.
and it's cool to hear that, and I think very valuable to hear that you've actually taken some inspiration going to film festivals, seeing other
Mhm.
work, and it is valuable to watch things that are not just polished, big budget pictures, but seeing what someone with a camera and like, you know, $1,000, sometimes less,
Yeah.
sometimes zero, can accomplish with friends that they have. And there's really great stuff, and I know people are going to come away with a great inspiration after seeing the Bêtes on October 17th at the Oregon Screams Horror Film Festival. Michael, thank you so much, man. I'm looking forward to screening that, and I'm looking forward to seeing more from you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.